What we will do is we'll be coming back with an update of the memorandum of understanding agreement in January.
In January. Okay,
Yes.
so it was updated during the meeting?
Yes,
It was updated during the meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, so that meeting was held, was that November or?
That was in
or
November.
December?
That was in November. Yes,
Meeting
ma'am.
held in November. So we'll get an update in January.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we generally, as you know, Dr. Hall, Linda, and to our board, we provide those MOU updates monthly
Yes.
for your review.
No, I didn't have any other questions.
Ms. Kendra, would you please pull up the MOU if you can?
It'll be a minute.
Thank you.
I would like to say, Mr. Edwards, in the proposed meetings that we just voted on in reference to the additional meeting each month on that first Thursday, I would like to propose that we also discuss data.
Sure.
That we have so that we are able to understand where it is we are with the data per school, Joseph P. King, S.P. Morton Elementary, and the high school.
Yes, ma'am. And,
So we want to always include, if that's the will of the board. Would you all agree? Since we are all we have a corrective action plan, that we are always making sure we're also focused on that as well.
Absolutely.
yes. And we'll provide each school's data in January.
Okay?
Yes.
It appeared to me that we had several, that we have several openings, and this may be a question for Mrs. Wade, Mr. Edwards, but it says several weeks that the Director of Human Resources and Administrative Services screened applications and participated in interviews for vacant teacher positions.
Yes, ma'am. We did
Okay.
have vacancies. And Ms. Wade, would you give the board an update while we're waiting for our technology, please?
And I do understand, Mrs. Wade, that would be kind of vague due to personnel.
Exactly. We
Yes.
continue to have 2 elementary positions that is been ongoing since September, the end of September. And we, as we get applicants, interview and screen and try to hire. We'll be recommending one for approval to fill one of those positions to you tonight. And other vacancies that we have, that we may have long-term subs in positions.
Gotcha.
We continue to advertise, screen applicants, and try to find the right fit in the candidates.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, it appears we are still having that technical difficulties, and so in the essence, we'll continue to work with our technology to bring it up. So what is the pleasure at this time, Mr. Holt, while we continue to work on that?
Okay. Any further questions for Mr. Edwards? I see that our student representative is here, Skylar Cutchins, and prepared to make a presentation. Would you come forward?
Hello.
Hello.
First, I'm going to start off with S.P. Morton Elementary School. S.P. Morton had their December Dairy Queen Night on December 1st. And on December 9th, S.P. Morton had their PBIS celebrations for the students. On December 13th, there was a PTA holiday meeting with the 5th grade music student silent auction. And on December 14th, there was a Winter Fun Festival Smart Beginnings program for the pre-K through kindergarten students. Moving on to J.P. King Middle School. J.P. King started their first school newspaper called the Mustang Messenger. And on December 8th, there was a Parents as Partners holiday concert. J.P. King also started a young men's mentoring program this year. And the boys middle school basketball team league, coached by Mr. Johnson, is undefeated this year so far. And on Tuesday, December 19th, which is tomorrow, there is a PBIS incentive celebration. It's a student versus teacher basketball game, and it's for the last hour of the day. Moving on to Franklin High School. At Franklin High School, the winter sports are in full swing. On the 27th through the 28th, we'll have a Christmas tournament for the basketball players and the cheerleaders. Theater just had their fall production of 12 Angry Villains on Thursday, December 15th through Saturday, December 17th. The director was Miss Terry Zerflu. FHS just finished the third benchmark, and the students are now preparing for their SOLs. FHS has had 2 very successful Saturday academies this month and to prepare for their SOLs. The science fair for the first semester science students was December the 14th. And many of our seniors have been accepted into colleges such as ODU, William & Mary, GMU, BCU, Longwood, LSU, and many more to come. The FHS Marching Band participated in the 2016 Christmas Parade this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Scholar. Item 4.1, unfinished business, second reading of our overnight trip request.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, before we move there, I believe she got it back on the screen. Can we go back just a minute to the financials, QZAP report?
Yes, we
Just
can.
briefly. For the QZAP report, Mr. Edwards, is it possible for the meeting for January 5th to have a complete review, to review the report with us?
Absolutely.
Yes,
Dr.
on the
Holland.
5th.
January the
versus us-
5th.
Yes,
Yes.
versus tonight trying to go through each item to see where we are, how much money, how much we spent. If
Right.
you would have the financial coordinator be prepared, if that's the will of the board, when we meet on the 5th.
We will do.
Thank you, Mr. Hope.
You're welcome. Will that give you enough time to do that?
Yes, sir. Give enough time.
Thank you, Dr. Holden. Overnight trip to Panama. Mr. Edwards, can you brief us on that?
Yes, Ms. Brenda, would you please come forward?
Good evening. I'm the Spanish teacher at Franklin High School, and I've been working on trying to put through this Panama trip for this summer. I sent Mr. Edwards with some information, but I also have some here. If anyone would like it, I can hand that to you.
Yes, please.
It just has an overview.
Thank you.
And I do apologize. My contact at EF Tours was going to come to the meeting due to the change in scheduling. She was not able to get childcare for the evening, but I gave you her contact information in case you would like to email her or call her with information. She would be happy to answer any questions that I'm not able to answer. That is the company we're going to. It stands for Education First Tours. They're a company that's been around for over 50 years, so they've kind of done and seen everything. They've sent a lot of kids abroad. The date is open-ended because they look for the best price for us, so we would leave sometime between the 18th and the 26th, depending on the best option, and then we would return 8 days later. The cost there is for student and adult. Students is $2,695. We only have 4 students right now, and the adult would be myself. So far, we've been able to raise $500. That's in the Spanish Club's account at the school. We've done a number of events, as you can see, a bake sale, a Spanish Club Day of the Dead event, after-school concessions, and Krispy Kreme donuts, and got some many others that are coming up, including car washes, a local business letter to go out to the community. The itinerary doesn't give you times yet because as we get closer, that's when they'll contact the specific event, the specific place to determine the times. But from my experience with EF Tours, they keep you busy from the morning all the way to the evening. You get up, you have breakfast, you leave for your tours of the day, you come back and you have dinner, and it's pretty much crashed because you're exhausted from all the walking. Those are some of the main highlights that we would have a chance to see. The Panama Canal, stone carvings, going through the rainforest and different things like that. The students that we have right now that are interested are Lenora Ward, who's a senior, Deshaun Butts, who's a sophomore, Talia Sweat, who's a freshman, and Matthew Kerbo, who's a freshman. EF Tours provides us one free chaperone per 6 students. So right now I would be the main chaperone for FHS. We travel with another group. So in order to keep the price down, if you don't meet 40 students, they combine you with other schools. So I wouldn't be the only adult there. We'd also have an EF Tours tour guide with us the whole time as well as contact with EF anywhere. They have companies and businesses everywhere throughout the world. So I always have contact with a person if need be. So that's the gist of it. If you guys have any other questions, please let me know. I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, I have a question. In reference to the liability, what would be the liability for the school division?
Truly, it all falls on EF. They cover us, they cover myself, they cover the school, they cover the school board, they cover the city itself. It always comes back to EF. They take full liability. And I wish I wrote down the number of the coverage that they have for us, but I don't remember the amount off the top of my head. But say a student loses their passport, it's not on us. Absolutely nothing comes back.
And right now, you said you have how many students interested?
4.
Did you say 4? I thought you said 4. Okay. And of those 4 students, how much have they invested in this? Like, how much money did they have to make a deposit?
3 of the students have made a deposit of, I believe it was either $50 to $90, depending on which payment they chose. One of the students has chosen a monthly payment and has paid about $300.
Okay. If this was not approved by the board, would those students be able to be refunded, or would they be able to go independently and have their parents approve this trip separately from a school trip? In other words, what I'm asking is, could the parents choose to send their child on the same excursion without this event going through the school division?
I understand. I believe so, though I would rather confirm with the EF Tours. They do not require school board approval. I personally would much rather have school board approval. I don't think that, I would rather, obviously, have the support. The contract is with the students, so for that reason, I believe that that should be possible. We also have an option of postponing a year. We could wait, nothing would change, and we can always move forward, and even my senior student would still be able to come with us. So there are a couple different options with that. I don't know if that answers your question.
I think it would be helpful for me. I think this is what, your second, you all discussed this, I believe, Mr. Houghton, in October? I believe this is your second time bringing this before the board. But for me, it would be helpful to know whether or not the students would still be able to take advantage of this opportunity, whether or not it was approved by this board as a school trip or not. For me, the liability issue.
Sure.
I would like to see the parents have that responsibility. If this was something that they wish for their children, that it would not be a part of Franklin City Schools, as Franklin City Schools sponsored event, but it could be an event, if you go back and research it, to see whether or not the parents would take on or assume all of the liability.
I can definitely get back to you on that one. I'm 90% positive, but I don't want to make an absolute
Okay.
100%.
Those are all the questions I had about it.
Yeah.
Do you want to delay approval for that, or do you want to go with it? Do we have a motion?
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we delay approval on the Panama trip because we are in need for more information.
I concur.
Second. Any discussion? Travis is coming forward.
Good evening to everyone.
Good evening.
Understand your concerns. I just want, if we delay, my only concern is, do we keep raising money? Do the kids keep making deposits? Do we keep having fundraisers? And if so, I mean, we just need some direction on what to do with that. This is something I kind of inherited when I came over, and we have met several times, and she's gotten all kinds of information for me, but the fundraising was already in progress. I just don't want to see those kids and families lose their money.
I make a motion at this time that we ask the Franklin High School principal that we authorized him to hold on all fundraising for this trip until we are provided adequate information to see whether or not this is something where parents can fully assume the liability of this trip.
If I may, you have one motion on the floor. Let's deal with the first motion before you entertain a second motion. Otherwise, we are liable to lose a motion in the minutes.
And may I ask you, Mr. Williams, what was the first motion?
I think the first motion was to delay it.
She seconded.
Right,
Ms.
but it
Phillips
had-
did second.
But it hasn't been voted on. So it's still
that
in the
goes back to you,
discussion
Mr. Holt.
stage, and that's why it's not timely for a second motion to come before the board.
So we're still on discussion.
So we can vote on the first motion. So let's do that. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries.
So then we're ready for the second motion.
Right.
Well, if I, if I understood, did Mr. Chairman, did you vote no?
I voted yes.
Okay, so you do have a quorum, that's 4. Thank you. I misunderstood your comments.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion at this time that we authorize the principal, Mr. Travis Phelps, to put a hold on all fundraising at Franklin High School for the Panama trip until we have more information.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Any discussion? All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Under new business, authorization to request appropriation. Mr. Edwards.
Ms. Jarrell, would you please come forward about the Opportunity Inc.? Please.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
Franklin City Public Schools received the attached notification from Opportunity, Inc. in the amount of $76,000 for the extension of the youth program contract. In order to correctly account for these funds, the fiscal year 2016-17 school budget must be increased by $76,000. Please add this to your agenda for authorization to request appropriation. Following board approval, request authorization for expenditures from the city council.
Do we have a motion to approve that authorization request?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the request to increase the fiscal year 2016-2017 budget by $76,000 per the Opportunity, Inc. notification in the amount of $76,000.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Important dates to remember. Obviously, January 24th is a excellent training session for new board members, for new chairman and vice chairman, for new superintendents. So just about all of us fit in that category. That's in Richmond on January 24th. Any further business by the school board members?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Policy DJR, we have discussed several times, Mr. Holt, in reference to, and that policy for all board members in the community talks about the amount that the superintendent can approve without board approval. I would like for us to add a review of that policy, once again, to the January's agenda.
I totally agree.
Policy DJR.
So would you make that in the form of a motion?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I move tonight to ask the school board to add a review of policy DJR to the regular school board agenda in January.
Is there a second? All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Any further business before we go into closed session? Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to Section 2.2-3712A of the Code of Virginia, I move that the Franklin City School Board convene in a closed session to discuss and consider the assignment, performance, salaries, and resignations of employees and evaluate the performance of departments and schools where such evaluation will necessarily involve discussion of the performance of specific individuals and to discuss a student matter which would involve the disclosure of information contained in the records of such students pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1 and 2.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion carries. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for being patient with us as we have our first meeting. And have a good holiday.